this felt like the best night ever at the Emirates to me. We deserved that. I think the club really needed this game.
Got to be careful with relations and family members saying it, but might have been the best night of my life.
There was a part of me watching it back this morning that feels like we should have got a fourth. I didn't for a second think that Declan Rice was going to put one, let alone two, into the back of the net the way he did on the night.
The second one is possibly the best free kick I've ever seen.
This is what it feels like when the Real Madrid bus turns up.
That's a half-fit Bukayo Saka, and he outshone Mbappe, Vinny Jr., Rodrigo. Every fullback in the world will be scared going into a game against Saka.
If we had signed a striker in January for 80 million quid and they produced the number of goals since then that Mikel Merino has, we'd all be going, what a fantastic bit of business that was.
The ground was packed in the concourse. It's really early. And then I go out to watch the warm-up, and the lower tier is basically full up. I've never seen that before at any point.
Suddenly you've got an 18-year-old hero, and performance from him last night I think was the embodiment of kind of what we are and what we're heading to being.
Would that be bigger than winning the Premier League for you?
It would be the biggest moment in the club's history, I think.
Welcome back to Inside Gooners. I'm your host, Harry Symeou. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the brilliant Clive Palmer and Rory Talks Football. Guys, what a pleasure, what an honour it is to be recording a podcast the day after the night before. Just an incredible result, an incredible night all round at Emirates Stadium. Before we dive into the specifics, let's get your sort of overarching thoughts on the night on the whole. Clive, I'll start with you. I mean, what an experience.
Yeah, I just need to calm down, and seeing your faces to help me do that. I think I lost my mind last night. I do a little instant reaction recording, and I was singing in that recording. That tells you something, right? And so, and I haven't got a great singing voice. Yeah, it's a great day all day, wasn't it? I mean, people were in the pubs earlier, people were in the ground earlier, and it really did make for something special. We all knew that this was a different one, you know. And so yeah, it was a night that I don't think any of us will forget, you know. And I know this is not new, but this felt like the best night ever at the Emirates to me, you know. So and if we get through, I'm saying that because I'm being humble. If we get through, it really will be the best night at the Emirates.
Rory, your take on an amazing night. Arsenal 3-0 winners, comfortable winners. Not something I was thinking was possible even in my wildest dreams, if I'm being honest.
No, honestly, it was. You got to be careful with relations and family members saying it, but might have been the best night of my life. It was just. I actually thought we were going to win, but I never thought we'd win 3-0. And it was. I don't think I've ever seen a crowd reaction where, within all the excitement, there was just complete shell shock. Like when the second Rice free kick went in. Yeah, I've just never had anything like it. Absolutely unbelievable.
I think we're all pretty confident that Arsenal are in a great position now to progress through to the semi-finals. That doesn't mean, Clive, that it's done and dusted, though, does it? And I want to get this bit out of the way before we sit and wax lyrical about Mikel Arteta's side. Is it over? Surely we've got to pay Real Madrid the respect their history deserves.
Yes, I'll put my cigar away and I'll say that basically I feel it's not over, right? But I mean, you watched it, Harry. I mean, it was like we played well, but we played well in a way where we belonged on the pitch with them, you know. And so, and maybe the shock came around because of the quality of the goals. They were like the highest level of quality. So it's not just the goals; it was the type of goals that we scored. And so, and that really impacted them, and the gap was getting bigger and bigger towards the end. So, obviously, like. In your mind, you're thinking, okay, let's just get through. Otherwise, you don't want to be that team like PSG were a few years ago when Barcelona beat them, you know, and you don't want to be what Liverpool did to Barcelona. You don't want that, you know, on your CV. And, you know, we've had a really rough time this year. People say it's our own fault, etc. But I think we've been very unlucky in certain scenarios. I don't need any more bad luck coming my way in the Bernabeu. So yeah, I'm just staying positive and hopeful.
Yeah, I don't think, Rory, if the unthinkable was to happen, it would be something I'd probably ever be able to recover from. Honestly, it's amazing to be in the position that we're at, but obviously we've got to protect against complacency, haven't we? Not just as a team and as a manager, but as supporters as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of it will come down to mentality, and that's something that's been questioned of this Arsenal team previously. Have we got the mentality for nights like last night? And I think we do. I think the big thing for me was actually that when we took the lead, we knew we had that game. And so instead of sitting back and thinking, oh, we'll take a 1-0 lead or we'll take a 2-0 lead, no, we just kept going and obviously giving ourselves that 3-goal advantage. I think it's over 400 days since we conceded more than 2 goals in a game. I think we go to the Bernabeu, and I don't think we should sit back. I've seen people saying, we're going to see that unbelievable Arteta low block. I think we go and play pretty much exactly the way that we did last night. I think we are a better team than them. I think we are more structured. We're clearly better drilled. We are a better team. So go and do the same again. And I think it would be unbelievable if we somehow threw it away from here.
We'll focus on the second leg in a little bit, and we'll talk about how the kind of best way to approach that is. But let's be a little bit more reflective on last night. Clive, for me, tactically, I thought this was the perfect game from Arsenal. I felt that we sort of knew when the right times were to kind of press and be a little bit aggressive. We figured out quite early in the game how to play through Madrid's press, which I think was a big help to us and contributed to us creating chances at the end of the first half. But for me, the overarching thing was the maturity shown. And we've seen this against the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool in recent seasons too, haven't we? Where we've kind of understood that we're going up against a side that does like to play in a certain way. And we've managed it really well, adapting our game in the process and showing that the team has really developed. What did you make of the night tactically?
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm quite hopeful for next week is that I don't think Real Madrid are that great off the ball. And how when you're watching the game, you're watching our build-up. So I see our build-up in the first half come sort of north corner end. So the pattern of play getting to the final third, I felt we got there quite easy. So I think Bellingham was on Odegaard early, trying to stop the ball going to him. We just went around him straight to Saka. And the front two don't press, they don't work back. So we can just play out. And so once we got over our nerves in the first early phase, a couple of giveaways, we started to play forward and wide and quickly into Rice, into Saka, then into Martinelli. And we got to that final third, for me, quite comfortably. It's too comfortable. I'm thinking they want to get us on the counter, which of course they did a couple of times. But then what they did, they allowed some of our ball players to feel good about their game. They're having touches without pressure. And they grew into the game. And suddenly, we're having crosses, we're having shots. And, the shot accuracy in this game was incredible from our players, So yeah, it was a game where I thought we managed it really well. I will say, I'm not sure you're going to talk about him, Ray, but I will say Mikel Merino's performance was stunning in there to help us maintain control. And while we're all watching and we're all scared, because we're all scared, right? And a couple of giveaways, then you're looking at the people who are not scared, and Partey and Miles just held that middle together incredibly. Was so vertical, and I'm looking at them thinking, well, they're not scared. I need to relax. Then Timber gets involved, and you can see people throwing away the nerves over time, and suddenly realizing that, it's just a badge, and they're not running with us. So, yeah, one of the best. I know you're gonna. I'm not gonna stop talking about this for days. One of the best feelings ever to see you overcome a team like that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially given so much of the talk in the lead up to the game, Rory. There was a lot of talk about Arsenal defensively. Could Jakub Kiwior handle it? Was it safer to go with maybe a half-fit Ben White and stick him in at centre-back, or maybe Jurriën Timber with White at right-back? There was a lot of people suggesting that, myself included. In theory, that felt like the best way to go. But Mikel trusted in Jakub Kiwior, and he was one of the players, as Clive mentioned, I felt, that kind of started a little bit shakily, but threw those nerves away and ended up growing into the game like everybody else.
Yeah, I was incredibly impressed with Jakub Kiwior because I think there was more pressure probably on him almost than any other player Arsenal player going into the game, because he was the centre of the conversation. There were, like you said, half the Arsenal fan base probably thought he shouldn't have started the game. He'd have known that he would have been the target for Real Madrid. He'd have been perceived as the weakness. And yeah, other than that, you know, he looked a bit uncomfortable in the first couple of minutes, gave the ball away. But after that, he was assured of himself. Physically, he was up to the task. On the ball, very comfortable. So I think, yeah, it was an unbelievable performance from him. And it was aided and helped massively by William Saliba, who I think had to, you know, really step up and lead the defence in the absence of Gabriel. And he did that incredibly well, sweeping up, dealing with Mbappe, Vinicius Jr. That was one of those performances where it was kind of a reminder, because even he himself has said it's not been his best season, but that was just a reminder that he is world class, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question about that. Just in terms of the game on the whole, Clive, we had 11 shots on target last night, which is remarkable when you think about the quality of the opposition we were up against. There was a part of me watching it back this morning that feels like we should have got a fourth. And I know that's me being greedy. We've just beaten Real Madrid by 3-0, and I should be buzzing, and I am buzzing. But there was a part of me that looked at it and thought, if only we'd nicked one more. Am I just being greedy?
Yeah, I think you are, mate. You've had your fillet steak. Now you want your scallops as well, right? So I think it's silly. No, when you see the double save and the clearance of the line, you hope for one more. Then you have to flip it round and say, we haven't scored a free kicks inside an afro, right? So then we scored 2 in 12 minutes. And then you say to yourself, well, I'll take that, because the goals that we did miss were like really good saves and goal line clearances. And so, yeah, you want one more because you just want to make it absolutely safe. But actually, it'll keep us focused, you know. We saw when we beat PSV, we weren't really super focused in the second leg. So it'll keep us focused. And so, yeah, I'd like the one more, Harry. But, yeah, I'd like lots of things in life. I'll take 3-0 home versus Real Madrid.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then, let's get into the bit that everybody's waiting for, the bend it like Declan section. I mean, listen, we've seen him, Rory, over the course of the season become a real, and last season as well, but become a real kind of useful set piece taker. Mainly though, with the focus on corner kicks. We've seen him deliver crosses from deeper areas and stuff, but I didn't for a second think that Declan Rice was going to put one, let alone two, into the back of the net the way he did on the night. Just sensational. The first question I'll ask you, and I'll put it to Clive, and then we'll kind of analyse them a little bit. Which one was better for you? Because this has been an interesting debate this morning.
For me, the second one is possibly the best free kick I've ever seen. It's, you talk about a postage stamp. It is unbelievable. It's on Courtois' side. He gets nowhere near it. And it's the pace on it. Every time I watch it back, you're watching it in real speed, but it's almost like it's sped up. It's unbelievable. And yeah, it is possibly the best free kick that I've ever seen. And we know that he's capable of whipping the ball. You know, you see those angles sometimes of the corners, and he gets so much whip on it. And I think we've all kind of thought, like, why can't we translate this into free kicks? Because he's so accurate with it. And yeah, for the first time last night, it all just seemed to click together finally, and I don't ever want to see another Arsenal player stood over a free kick other than Declan Rice.
Clive, your thoughts?
Yeah, the second one was incredible because again, it's all about emotions, isn't it? The first one you sort of think, well, that's great, isn't it? He's over the ball for the second one. It seems to be a bit further out, and then you're thinking, well, he couldn't, could he? And then he does the job, right? So, and yeah, I do think in the Everton game at the weekend, there was a moment when Rice got the ball sort of in the left-hand channel, and he went for a reverse pass, and I said to myself, mate, trust your talent. You've got a great strike on you. Take your shots. Just take your shots. And the point about shot accuracy last night was a real prevalent one for me. If you ask yourself about us as a team, we're a well-structured team on and off the ball. We play, we pass, we're quite collective. But I sometimes feel we're not obsessed by scoring. We just play. And I felt there was an obsession yesterday to really strike the target hard with accuracy and really take the opportunities. And if you're thinking about next season, which I already am, looking at how we can improve, That's one of the things I want to see improve. People who are really obsessed with hitting that target hard, not just playing the game really well and looking like a very good, strong positional team on and off the ball. I felt that last night, and I was so pleased to see it.
I slightly lean towards the first free kick being the better of the two. I think they're both amazing, but the reason I say that is because I feel like there was a little bit more whip on the first one, and it was so out of the blue. It was so unexpected. Like, I mean, Declan's kind of thrown Nicolas Jover under the bus a little bit, hasn't he, by coming out and saying that he told him to cross it. This all-knowing set-piece coach that we have, this guru of set-pieces, got that horribly wrong, and Declan just defied him and did what he wanted to do anyway. And the result was incredible. Look, they're both amazing, but just the whip on the first one for me was just incredible, unbelievable stuff. And I mean, guys, just talk through the moment when, especially that second one went in, because I looked around and almost everybody within eye shot of me basically had their hands on their head as if to say, what on earth have we just seen? What has just happened? I mean, Rory, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I was my seat was up in the heavens, second from the back row, and it was just I can't really even remember the first part of the celebration. It was just absolute carnage. My shins and knees are battered and bruised this morning from trying not to go head first over the row in front of me. So I know it was good. And then afterwards there was kind of just a moment where everyone was just in complete shock. It was just like, what have we just witnessed? And then you look back and you're like, that's one of those moments that 15, 20 years time we'll still be talking about that moment and that goal. And yeah, it's a privilege to have even been there for it.
Clive, how far did your jaw drop when the second one went in?
Yeah, well, I have to apologise to a few people sitting near me because I squeezed their heads off, right? So, it was, it was incredible. I will say that it really was incredible, and it makes you think sometimes, where has this been? Where has this been? But just want to stay on the positive side of things. I just feel that we deserve that. I think the club really needed this game. They needed this game. We talk about where we were when Mikel joined, we were 10th, whatever, and what we've had to do to clean up the squad to get here. Then you play Bayern Munich, and the Bayern Munich game was really a marker for me because you looked at it and you thought to yourself, okay, they are good. They're rested. They're not going for the league. They're rested. We were going for league, remember? And we struggled in that Bayern Villa Bayern week. We didn't quite have the energy to overcome it. And it was all a bit new. And we hit par, quarterfinals, take our 90 million quid and we move on to next year, right? So, whereas this year I felt we're much wiser in the competition. And I feel we have a bit more confidence in who we are. And that's still to be grown, by the way. I think the next phase of Arsenal is an improvement in our mentality. So looking at them, looking at the game, I think the club needed this game as a marker to say, this is what it feels like when the Real Madrid bus turns up and parks in your manor. This is what it feels like. And you have to stand with them and walk with them and warm up next to them and see how it feels. And can you still get your game out? And when we had a couple of slips in the first couple of minutes, I thought, they look a bit nervy. But then they settled. And I think it's such an important night for the club. It's been a long time getting here. To get there and get a result in front of the world, major night.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we don't feel like pretenders at this level anymore. We feel like we belong here, and this is a club of huge size, and that should be in the latter stages of the Champions League every single year. But it's been, prior to last season, it'd been such a long time since we made the quarterfinal stage. We got there last time, as Clive mentions. We fell short. This time you were looking at the team and you were thinking, okay, show me what you've learnt. Show me how you've grown. Show me how you've improved. And, the task, you could argue, is even bigger against Real Madrid and the aura that they have. As great as that Bayern Munich side are, they're not Real Madrid. Nobody is Real Madrid. This is a side that are steeped in history and that beat most teams before they even come out of the tunnel. So to see Arsenal go out there and, as Clive says, really kind of play their game, find their own game was special. And to be fair to Clive, you'd said that on a previous podcast that we did together, that we had to be ourselves. Yeah. It was no good to sort of turning up there and sort of going into our shell. We had to be ourselves, and we did that. And so many players that, over the course of the season, you have looked at and wondered, what level they're at. Jakub Kiwior especially had that nervy bit at the beginning, but sometimes you need the rub of the green. You need, when you have that moment, to not be punished. And it's felt like all season, whenever we had those moments, we've unfortunately been on the wrong side of the outcome. And then that obviously impacts confidence even further. So just an unbelievable night. What did we make? And I'll start with you, Clive, on this Bukayo Saka's performance, because I felt he grew into the game as it went on. The first 10, 15 minutes, I didn't feel he was that involved, but he grew into it. And to put in a display like that, having been out for so long and having played so little minutes since, it's remarkable.
Yeah, I sort of misread his performance. I didn't realise that he got fouled for like both the free kicks. And I thought he was just steady. And to be honest, I'm so nervous about his fitness. We can all see he's not at his sharpest, you know. So he's choosing another way to do things. Rather than explode and really attack the man at top speed, he's going up more in a more considered way. And he's having gear changes, you know, and slowing it down and then going and playing 1-2s. And so when you look at his game, what I like about him is he's getting the most out of what he has at this moment in time. I'm not trying to be the player he was when he got injured, because he was at the top of his game. He's not quite there now, but they all remember him, you know, because he ripped them on that side, didn't he? And I think when you see the game again, which I did in the night, I thought, I misread Saka's performance. I thought he was unfit and rusty. And actually, he did everything he actually could. And I think, Harry, the influence he has over the opposition is marked, isn't it? Right, so he boosts all our lives, right? We can't believe he's back out there again. Our whole attack game gets lifted. But I think he makes the other team really worried. His reputation is starting to travel now, and as will other players after this game. You know, everyone watched this. So Declan Rice, mate, oh my God. You know, everyone watched it. And so, yeah, fantastic performance from him.
Rory, what did you make of Bukayo Saka? I mean, it'd been so much talk about whether or not he was going to be ready to start this game. I think it was always going to be the case that even if at 75%, Bukayo Saka was going to be thrown into the arena, and he delivered.
Yeah, as soon as it had kind of been leaked in Spain that David Alaba was going to be starting at left back, I liked that matchup instantly. And I think it almost took, like you said, Saka's first 15 minutes wasn't up to it. I think it took him a little bit of time to realise just how easily he could get by Alaba either way, and the respect Alaba was showing him, knowing that he couldn't keep up. You know, it's very easy actually for us to get to the box when Saka picks the ball up on the halfway line, and Alaba just backtracks and backtracks and backtracks all the way into the box. And you know, first half I thought 2 of those balls that he flashed across the box. I think if you've got an elite striker there, they probably read that situation. And he gets a couple of assists. And then, yeah, second half wins both of the free kicks. For the second, was it first or second? One of them, he rolled Bellingham quite comfortably, carried it, and got clamped by Camavinga. That's a half-fit Bukayo Saka, and he outshone Mbappe, Vinny Jr., Rodrigo. And I think that is, you know, probably the highest praise that you can give him. And going forwards, every fullback in the world will be scared going into a game against Saka, because he can go down on his right, he can come in on his left. He's just a ridiculously good player.
He is indeed. Just on the Emirates Stadium, guys. I mean, when we first moved stadium, there was a lot of talk about, you know, it not being the same as Highbury, and it took a bit of time for it to feel like home, and all the rest of it. All the natural problems that come with moving from an iconic ground like Highbury to a bowl of a stadium, right? Which is what the Emirates Stadium is. But Clive, it feels to me like since Mikel Arteta's come in particular, there's been a real emphasis on generating the type of atmosphere that we feel could help us, on making it feel more like home, in building that connection with the supporters. And no team has won at the Emirates in the Champions League since the start of last season. There's 9 clean sheets along the way there as well. How much credit does Mikel Arteta deserve for his part in that? Because, I mean, I find it wild that there are still Arsenal fans out there that are hypercritical of him, that when it comes to a night like last night, they want to give everybody else credit before they give it to him. But ultimately, so much of what we saw last night, the structure on the pitch, the atmosphere off the pitch, the connection that he's helped forge, that's all been so important. And he's been right at the centre of that. So on the stadium, how much of a difference is it making, and how much does Mikel deserve praise for that?
Yeah, I mean, if those people want to see us play Bodo Glimp and carry a bag, they're quite happy for that. I'm happy to go and watch Real Madrid at home. Thank you very much. I think we forget how far that we've come. I do feel, that bit where it said in the ground, where it said "make it happen," and I think there was a rallying call, and you can see that message was sent to the players as well. You can see that, couldn't you? Take things, be accountable, make things happen. When we're on top, can we do something? Because against Bayern, we didn't do that. And I think the press conference before the game I thought was really positive, because he literally told the fans, "I need you in there," And I think you in that press conference, Harry. I need you in there, and I need you to be there for the warm up. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get in there a bit earlier. So I got in there a bit earlier. The ground was packed in the concourses really early, and then I go out to watch the warm up, and the lower tier is basically full up. And I've never seen that before at any point in my Emirates Arsenal watching life, and I've been there from the very first game, and so that means the messages are getting through. So for those people who are negative, which are always going to be, the people in that ground had listened to the manager, and they had turned up and did their part, and I think the players responded. So the whole connection to the club, the players, and the fans. It has wavered a bit this year, and when we haven't got our striker, it has wavered a little bit, and people question our ambition in the short term, but it was back. It was back 100%. It was back for this game, because there's a time to put your small grievances to one side and really support the team, and everyone did that.
Yeah, Rory, your take on the whole connection piece, because I think it's massive. I think it really does help. I think it makes the world of difference. And, in the past, we've been missing that for such a long time. And I remember for years, I don't want to mention them on this podcast, but for years, I've looked at Liverpool on a European night and gone, why can't we have that? Well, last night we had that and more.
Yeah, I've never really subscribed to the idea that you can't have an atmosphere in a bowl. Don't get me wrong, there are certain grounds where it is easier to generate an atmosphere, but ultimately, if you're playing at the biggest stage in the way that we are, and you've got that connection with the fan base, you will generate an atmosphere anywhere. Being in a bowl doesn't make a difference. And you look at some other grounds this season where their football is terrible and they're in the bottom half of the table, the atmosphere is terrible. Well, that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, for me, it was the best atmosphere I think I've ever experienced at the Emirates, and long may it continue. And I think the connection Arteta's built, like you said, of course, there are a handful of dissenters, but outside of that, one moment that always sticks with me was the final game of last season, when it filtered through that Man City had won their game and that we had no chance of winning the title. And the first reaction in the stands was to sing Mikel Arteta's name in response to that. And I thought that was a moment where it was like, okay, the fan base are fully behind him, fully behind the project, and we're reaping the rewards of it with nights like last night.
Yeah, for sure. Just incredible. Before we start looking ahead and looking at what's to come, what's next, Clive, there's been a lot of talk about Victor Gyökeres lately. I know you did a scouting video on him recently, which I caught, which I thought was fantastic, by the way. Make sure you go and check it out over on the Arsenal Vision podcast. But he's got to be one hell of a finisher, Victor Gyökeres, if he's better than Mikel Merino.
Yes, Mikel Merino, one of my favourite players. He's when Jorginho moves on, which he will do in the summer, you can already see that we've already got the next guy who's smart, intelligent, a bit more experience. And I just think, my view on him, I think he's a sensible footballer. He takes shots really well at the right time. He puts himself in the box in the air at the right time to do his job there. He takes the first ball from the goalkeeper when we need to go long. He's available for it. And when the midfield are being a little bit overrun and need someone to drop in and tackle from the front, he drops back in. He does a lot of what Havertz does, but he hasn't got Havertz's pace down the sides, so we can't stretch teams so much from the central areas. But he does that multi-layered role, right? And it's something that we've grown used to. And I'm a big believer in that. I want the Arsenal Football Club needs a centre forward in the club. Someone just a true centre forward. You can't have that. You can't have just people that are wingers that can play there and centre midfielders that can play there. In your club, you do need a centre forward. But I also feel, and I'm sure you guys agree, that a lot of the danger in football comes from wide areas in the half spaces and how you attack that and how you stretch teams. So it's just as important to invest in wide speed and people that can carry and travel in that game. The carriers really stood out in Miles and in Bukayo and Martinelli. The carriers and Odegaard, they carried the ball to the areas, committed people and moved the ball on. And so, yeah, Merino, unsung hero, cult hero player. Imagine without his goals where this season would be. We'd be maybe thinking about Europa League music again, right? Because that was not what he was signed for, to do what he's done. And he's got fitter now, and I think he's been brilliant. I really do.
That's the remarkable thing about it, isn't it, Rory? I mean, if we had signed a striker in January for 80 million quid, and they produced the number of goals since then that Mikel Merino has, we'd all be going, what a fantastic bit of business that was. And here's this midfielder who, I would be honest, I don't think the fan base were convinced about, even as a midfield player a few months ago, who's had an opportunity to step up, grow into a role, and he's shown his value and his worth.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's 6 goals in 9 games, a striker. I think if we signed a striker that come in and done that, we'd have been very happy with it. So, no, I think for the second season in a row, we've had a player that's come in, not necessarily hit the ground running. The fan base have started turning on him a bit, questioning it. And then he's played in a different position and suddenly everyone's loving him. And I think the best credit for Merino last night was the fact that he's acknowledged playing up front, pressing in the way that he has to is tiring, very tiring. And yet when Rice had to go off and he had to drop back into midfield, having done a 75-minute shift up top, he drops back into midfield, didn't make a mistake, very comfortable on the ball. And I think that's really, really impressive for me. Like you said, of course, we need a striker. I think, a Gyökeres probably gets the first half brace in a game like that. But what Marino's done, cult hero, we will. It's one of those, you'll never forget this sort of 6-month period of Merino. But yeah, unbelievable.
Now, I don't want to tempt fate, but we've all expressed our confidence at the potential, shall we say, of us progressing through to the semi-final stage. And if we do make it, waiting for us will either be Aston Villa, managed by our former boss Unai Emery, or Paris Saint-Germain, who have really, really impressed in the competition in the recent stages. Clive, who would you rather face in the next round, Aston Villa or PSG? Because this is a question for which the answer, I don't think, is as cut and dry as it probably should be.
Mate, PSG all day long. I want to play them. Again, we watched them in the early part of the season. I know they've changed, but there are some matchups which sort of suit you. And I always felt that PSG-Liverpool was a struggle for them because Liverpool's weaknesses are in fullback areas, and they've got a lot of speed in wide areas, And whereas I think for Arsenal, I think we've got a lot of one-on-one fullback killers that want to get after you, and I think we match up to their strengths. But also in centre midfield, they're quite diminutive in centre midfield. And I think in the home game we played them, we really physically dominated them in there, in a way that Liverpool couldn't get around them. Because Liverpool don't really play through midfield. They use it as a running track. Whereas we do play in midfield. We will hold that position. We will compete. We will duel with you. And so PSG, despite the fact that they have got some stunning players in attack that can really sprint, we know them, and I think we can handle them. And I think we can control the centre of the pitch. So, whereas Unai Emery has this thing over me, this spooky cloud I don't like. The Villarreal game, the fact we sort of mistreated him, I think we did. I think he felt disrespected by Arsenal. His career was mismanaged. He didn't have control over it. He's got control over his career at Villa. And he's already cost us 1 league title. He would do. Can you imagine it? If he goes win European Cup, we can't have that. No, we can't have that. That's not nice feelings. So I want him out, and I want PSG to come through, and I think we do quite well against them.
Rory, your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think matchups are far more important than people give credit for in football, and I got a massive amount of abuse for suggesting that we'd have a better chance of beating Real Madrid than Atletico Madrid, but it was for the exact same reason. Matchups make games. We've seen Villa know to an extent, how to stop us. We've seen that over the last couple of seasons. Whereas, like you said, I think against PSG, we can nullify their wing threat, which is their biggest threat. Defensively, I don't think they are fantastic. And even with a relatively sort of not lackluster performance, but a very controlled performance at home in the league phase, like you said, they have improved, but we kind of comfortably trotted to a 2-0 victory against them already this season, and I'd back us to do the same again.
I definitely think that PSG are the better of the two sides, having watched them against Liverpool, and also the fact that they've already won Liga and gives them, the opportunity to focus solely on the Champions League and just kind of cruise by in the domestic league, which is obviously an advantage. But I'm with you guys on the kind of Unai Emery thing. The idea of facing Unai Emery in another European semi-final just scares the living daylights out of me. I was not convinced when he was Arsenal boss. Do I think we mistreated him, to Clive's point? Not really. I think we just realised that it wasn't going to work, and we knew that we had to turn the ship around and change direction, and we couldn't afford to let it go any further down that stream, if you like. So I don't have any ill feeling towards Unai Emery, but I think he's got this extra bit of motivation every time he comes up against Arsenal. And we know that in games against us and in European competition, generally speaking, he's got that ability to mastermind sort of tactical victories. And I just fear that. And imagine the narrative as well. We talked about some of the kind of the Arteta naysayers. Imagine that those people, you don't need to give them more oxygen. And the potential of Unai Emery knocking us out would give them more oxygen. They'd say, he's got to this same stage of the Champions League with Aston Villa. So why is it such a big achievement that Mikel Arteta's managed it? That's what you'd be giving those people, and they just need to disappear. Like, in terms of that narrative, it needs to go away. And so I don't want that time. None. Not at all. No, thank you. Obviously, victory last night as well secured a 5th Champions League spot for next season in the Premier League. That was the significance of it from a league-wide perspective. I don't know about you guys, but Clive, I'm just glad that it's not going to be Tottenham or Manchester United benefiting from that.
Yeah, it might be Newcastle though, and there's 3 teams there: Newcastle, Chelsea, and City. I would like to see. I shouldn't say this out loud, but it wouldn't. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't cry myself to sleep if Chelsea didn't make that top 5. To put it that way, But hey, we'll see. We'll see how we go. But we've done our job, mate. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. No open top buses just yet. We're doing our job really, really well, and it's helping other teams in the league hopefully get to the promised land of the Champions League, right?
Rory, would lifting the Champions League trophy, and again, we're not getting ahead of ourselves, but just to put into context what a big achievement it would be, would that be bigger than winning the Premier League for you?
Yeah, 100%. It's the biggest competition or domestic competition in football. There's no doubt about it. It would be the biggest moment in the club's history, I think, and especially because there's something different about a final compared to a Premier League where, okay, you've won the Premier League with X amount of games to go. Winning it on the final day, of course, is incredible, but I just think, a final, lifting it in a season where a lot of people had written us off, a lot of question marks were being raised, I think, and with the team, you're looking at, for me, Miles Lewis-Skelly, for an 18-year-old like that to do it, suddenly you've got an 18-year-old hero, and I mean, the way he played last night, just to quickly speak on it, unbelievable. The performance from him last night, I think, was the embodiment of kind of what we are and what we're heading to being, the mentality of him, the confidence on the ball. He didn't care that he was up against Rodrigo, comfortably handled him. But the way he ran into midfield, knowing that he was leaving Rodrigo perhaps in a dangerous position, but thinking, I'm probably not going to lose the ball anyway. And if I do, I'll worry about that afterwards. And there was a bit of right at the end where Jude Bellingham tried to get him sent off, frankly, which I thought was embarrassing. But Miles Lewis-Skelly, as he was jogging away, kind of looked back at Bellingham and just said, get up, get on with it. And I thought, this is the future of this club, and I'm very excited for it.
I was going to make a Jude Bellingham joke, but I'll keep it to myself until after the second leg. Clive, on Miles Lewis-Skelly, we've gone down that path now. We've got to do it. I know you were blown away by his performance. Just give us some thoughts on his development in a very, very short space of time.
Well, he's developing in front of us all, isn't he? So every time he gets dispossessed, we all see it. So he's learning. He should be learning Boreham Wood, but he's learning against Man City, against Real Madrid, and he's learning quick, isn't he? He's learning quick. And I think Rory makes a great point. I think he epitomises the next phase for us, to not be afraid to show what you have. And I think he's rubbing off on other people because the verticality of his passing last night was stunning. So Thomas Partey is our most vertical player normally. But then I think he started to feed off it. So sometimes when we have a ball and it's a square ball or an angle ball on, we tend to go back and around. But I felt we kept it in the area longer. We trusted our accuracy of passing. We trusted our teammates to control it and really kept the rhythm of attack going until they ran out of puff. They ran out of puff. We made it an off-the-ball game for them. And Miles is right behind that. In his one-on-ones, he's excellent. He knows when to drive. And even on the assist for the goal, I mean, you got me going now, Harry, flipping hell. On the assist for the goal, I think he passed that ball knowing he had to do it at pace so Marino could get the strike first time. If he just rolls that in, Marino has to have a touch, look for another pass, but he passes it at a pace. If you remember his early games, his pace of pass was quite slow and young. Now it's fizzing it into people, saying, I know what I need to do at this level. I need to fizz it in, you can handle it. And they're handling it, and the passes have got messages on them now. And Marino scores that goal off of the pace of pass. You know, and 18. Mate, where were you when you was 18? Let's not think about it, shall we?
You don't want to know.
I won't tell you. Otherwise they won't invite me back on.
No, absolutely. It was amazing. And you're right to highlight that pass to Mikel Merino. When I watched it back this morning, what I found interesting was that Mikel Merino's obviously, he's gone into the box and then he's had to drop off. He's had to come deeper to release himself of the Real Madrid defenders around him. And Miles Lewis-Skelly reads that. He understands that and he plays the pass into the space that Marino's going to come into rather than pinging it at him in a crowded area, in a congested area. So it's that anticipation as well. That's natural, man. Like, you can learn that, you can try and develop and you can try and study the game as much as you like. But having that anticipation is a natural thing, and it's brilliant. It really is. We've got Brentford obviously at the weekend. Rory, I was doing a little exercise this morning. I was writing it down on my phone. Neto plays for me, Tierney, Zinchenko, Ben White, Jorginho, Waneri, Trossard, Sterling. It does look, we want to win and we want to, be as close to Liverpool come the end of the Premier League season as we possibly can be. But it really does feel like our season now is riding on this Champions League campaign, and it's very hard, isn't it, to not fall into that trap of being distracted. But it's probably just going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to take any sort of silver lining from not being in the title race, it's that we can afford to rest certain players, and I do think there are certain players, Saka, Rice, Saliba, you wrap them up at Timber, you wrap them up in cotton wool, and if we don't beat Brentford, we're still comfortably inside the top four, now the top five for the Champions League next season. So there are certain players like Kivior that I actually think it probably benefit him to continue playing. I think the more games he plays at left centre back, the better for him. But yeah, you're right. It's I've not really even thought about the Brentford game, to be honest, but it'll be enjoyable.
Do we need a few more days, Clive, before we start thinking about the weekend's game?
Which could be a nice sunny day. That's all I know. And I haven't thought about it. I thought about what I'm going to do before the game and make sure I still soak up the Real Madrid game and really have a chat with people about it. But yeah, you know the way Arteta works. Some people he likes to keep in rhythm, and some people he likes to take out. He took out a couple in the last game, but he'll give them minutes, right? So I think we'll see Saka still build up his minutes, whether it be at the start or at the end. We'll see other players start like Trossard and like Ethan, for example. Martinelli was one of the quieter players last night, even though I felt he had an important role to keep them pinned back. Their right back couldn't get involved in play. So that's really important. So maybe we'll see a bit of him towards the end of the game as well. So I think we do need to keep people ticking over. Ben White needs it more than some. I would like to see Zinchenko used myself. I think he's underutilised, if I'm honest with you, at this time of the season. So I'd like to see him used. But yeah, the most important thing for Arsenal Football Club is to get through this round of games, because there is a real opportunity to have a European record. Because we haven't really got one. I was in the stadium when we beat Parma. That's a long time ago. And we haven't really got one. And a club like us should have a European record, which is better than it actually is. We get critiqued by our rivals in blue across London, and I'd love to be able to shush up a few people Harry, in particular.
Yeah. There's a few of them out there. Let's be honest about it. Right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing a historic night at Emirates Stadium with you. Thank you to Rory Talks Football, to Clive Palmer from the Arsenal Vision podcast. This has been Inside Gooners. I'm Harry Symeou. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, all the rest of it. Get involved in the comments as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts. A magical night in N5. We're the lucky ones that get to relive it. Thanks for joining us. All the best.